Most of all, the insurance companies are at the mercy of their reinsurance. So the reinsurer market will dictate to the insurance companies what they can and cannot do, what they can and cannot write. And for example, Farmers does no homeowners insurance in Orinda. So as you can imagine, with me being in Orinda, that makes it kind of hard for me to be a Farmers agent. But, here we are. So let's talk about what is a covered claim. A covered claim is a sudden accidental incident. Something has happened. A sudden accidental discharge of water, a fire, something, a vehicle crashes into the building, a tree falls on the carport. Those are sudden accidental. Those will be possibly and most likely covered claims. Wear and tear or maintenance is specifically excluded. So when you have mold, mildew, deterioration, most time those things are not going to be covered. If they are part of a covered claim, those portions of the materials that have been damaged or affected over long-term wear and tear will specifically be excluded. Most of our insurance policies that we have in place, and all the ones that I have in place for your HOA properties, are on a special form policy. What that means is that everything is covered unless it's excluded. So you will have your declarations page with 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, and then you're going to have about 20 pages of exclusions. So it's really important to know what those exclusions are. Specifically, flood and earthquake are going to be excluded unless we have a separate policy in place for your properties. When in doubt of, is this a covered claim, call your insurance agent. Call your insurance professional for advice, and the insurance professional or myself as your agent, I will let you know, is this something that needs to be reported? Is this an incident that needs to be notated on the file? And we will go from there. So let's talk about before the claim happens. So this presentation specifically is geared towards water claims. We have had quite a few of them, especially after or during the December storms, and thereafter we've had a significant amount of water claims that have come forward. Some have been covered and some have not been covered. So let's go over that. So before the claim happens, what I would recommend for your homeowners, this would be all of your unit owners, is that they look into Flow by Moen. I don't know if you're familiar with Flow by Moen, but it's a little device that is part of the plumbing system. It's inserted as part of the plumbing system. It is a smart water monitor, and it will shut off the water if it detects leaks from your toilet, from your shower, from your faucets, to the pipes and the foundation behind the walls, which is super important. And it costs about $130 for 3 monitors, available online at Home Depot. And some insurance companies for the HO6 policies will even offer better deductible options or discounts for having these monitors. And sometimes some of the unit owners might have challenges trying to get homeowners insurance if there's been a previous water claim. And Flow by Moen will actually help offset some of those challenges. For your vacant, unoccupied, and vacation homes, you should have these loss control measures in place to prevent undetected water discharge and leaks in standing water. So this is really information that you can communicate to your unit owners. And if you have any questions or your unit owners have questions, they can always give my team a call. So water has discharged. Now what? So first things first, the first thing we want to do is turn the water off. Can we figure out the source of the water? Can we get it turned off? Did it leak from a pipe? Did it burst from a pipe? Was it a backup of a sewer and drain? Is the roof leaking because of the severe rainstorms? So we have to figure out how is the water coming into the unit and how can we get it stopped? That really is first and foremost for your unit owners to know what is the plan of action. So their first call may be to your property manager, it may be to your maintenance team, or it may be to the water restoration company. So Sonia at First Onsite, give her a call immediately, and her and her team will direct you on what to do. So that is the priority. The priority is to get the water to stop from discharging. After that has been in place and we've got the water restoration team out there en route, on site, you want to give me or your other insurance representative a call when something has happened. Whether or not it's going to turn into a reported claim to Farmers or to another insurance company, the first thing that we want to do is preserve coverage. So even if I just note the file that there's been a water discharge, it's noted in the file, it preserves coverage. Time is not on your side when it comes to water, so standing water will create more damage and can impair the claim's coverage and the process. So if we have water that has been standing for a week or two, that's probably going to be a big problem. So the first thing that you want your unit owners to do is to make sure that they are preserving the property from additional damage and getting that water restoration team out there. What can you expect after a claim has happened or after a water discharge has happened? So what you can expect from me and from all your other insurance professionals is that we will get that claim reported. We will provide you with the claim number, with your adjuster contact information, and we will facilitate the communication between the adjuster and you in a timely manner. We want to make sure that you know who you're working with, because we want to get that call done, and your adjuster will give you the timeline for inspection, coverage clearance, and payment. It's very, very important to be in touch with your adjuster as soon as possible. If the adjusters for farmers will usually reach out to you within 24 hours. If you do not hear from a farmer's adjuster within 24 hours, that would be the time to give me a call so I can get on the horn and figure out what is going on. Sometimes when we have heavy rainstorms like we did in December, their timeline is hugely impacted, and they might have to bring adjusters from out of state in to help manage the inflow of claims that are coming in. The other thing is you want to allow your adjuster time to work on the claim. So as we know, everything is taking longer these days, everything from scheduling, from getting the maintenance crew out there, from getting the demolition done, from getting the new construction materials out there, getting estimates, everything is just taking longer. So we do want to make sure that we're cognizant of everything taking longer and trying to be patient through the process. The other thing that I want to make clear, because this has actually come up quite a few times, is that the adjuster does not facilitate the repair. The repair is actually handled by the board of the HOA, by the property manager of the HOA, or by the affected unit owner. The adjuster, what the adjuster does is the adjuster comes out and he does the on-site inspection. They will run the estimates, they will clear the coverage, and they will issue the check. So that is really the part of the insurance. If the claims adjustment, and this happens quite a bit, if the claims adjustment and the payment differ from the actual estimates of the vendors that you're going to have do the repair, what should you do? The first thing you should do is send me an email, send me the estimates. I will get them over to the adjuster and I'll say, can you have a second look, see what's going on, because you probably missed something. It's not unusual for the adjuster to miss something, because once the demolition is done, there could be additional work behind the walls that they didn't see. Overall, the goal when there is a claim that happens and gets reported and gets paid is to get you back to where you were prior to the loss. So that's what we try to do. What can go wrong? Or maybe it should be what cannot go wrong, because it seems like a lot of times something will go wrong and something can go wrong. But if the claim is reported immediately, chances are that it's going to be a more favorable claim. When the claim is reported after the fact, and we have had happen where the repair is already done, everything has already happened, and now it's like, oh, by the way, we had a water claim, everything's been done, everything's been repaired, but we want to submit a claim. It's very, very challenging for that situation to happen, because unless everything is properly documented, the adjuster really has no way of knowing what actually happened, what was actually damaged, and what does the insurance policy pay. If the vendor comes out to do the water dry out and the demolition is not properly documented or photographed, the adjuster has no way of knowing what happened. I was really happy when I talked to Sonia because she was walking me through the process, and she said photos and documentation is done before they start their process and every day during their process. All of their water measurements are done. Everything is done in a timely fashion and very well documented. That makes it easier for an adjuster to go back in after the fact and say, okay, this is what happened, this is what's covered. Prior to COVID-19, adjusters were always doing on-site inspections. With COVID, on-site inspections stopped. We were doing video inspections, photo inspections, having the vendors go out and do their inspections and submit for claims approval. And that was what was happening during COVID. Now that COVID dust is kind of settling, and hopefully this summer, we will be back on track. The adjusters are actually going back out on on-site inspections. They are following COVID protocol, and what that really means is they have limited people on site. So they really just want to meet with the affected unit owner and themselves. If the property manager wants to go out on site, typically the adjuster will not have them come in the unit because they want to limit the number of people that are inside the unit. If you have questions about that or concerns about that, that would be a good time to give me a call. So, as I mentioned earlier, what else can go wrong? So if the unit owner is completing the repairs prior to the inspection, the claim can result in no payment. It can result in a denied claim. When we have a denied claim, we have a very unhappy unit owner, we have a very unhappy board, we have a very unhappy property manager. Definitely don't want that to happen. Our goal is to make sure that the claims process goes as seamless as possible. If there are delays in water cleanup and drying, that results in it can result in damage that will not be covered in the claim payment. So this is why it's very important for that first call to be to your water restoration team, to get them out there, to get them drying up the water so that we don't have mold and mildew issues. Again, vendors that don't accurately and effectively document the process, so whether you're using First Response or ServPro or ServiceMaster, most of those companies are very aware of how the insurance company needs everything to be documented. If you're using a new vendor or you're using a vendor of your choice that hasn't really had a lot of experience with farmers insurance claims or insurance claims in general, what you want to do is let them know first and foremost, this will probably result in an insurance claim. We need to make sure that everything is getting documented. If the adjuster hasn't been out there, for sure you want to make sure that everything is getting documented. I would also recommend that your unit owners and your board always work with licensed, bonded, and insured vendors. Cutting costs and cutting corners results in work that doesn't restore the property, and then we have a big problem. What I really appreciate about Collins is that your vendors have to go through that vetting process, including myself. And so annually, I am requested to upload my E&O insurance, my current insurance license, and all my other insurances. So working with those approved vendors really will make the process a lot easier. And I also want to include that profit and overhead from your contractors is typically not going to be covered or paid under the claim. So a lot of times I will look at estimates and I will see that profit and overhead has been included. And many times the adjuster is not going to pay that. If that becomes an issue or a problem, please get your insurance person involved so that we can talk to the adjuster and see what can we actually coordinate, what can actually get paid. And the other question is all water damage covered? So again, sudden accidental discharge. So a failed part, a failed pipe, a dishwasher hose, that's going to be covered. Surface water rising up from the ground is the clear definition of flood insurance and will be specifically excluded from your standard insurance policy. Flood insurance is a separate policy, not typically included unless the property is in a special flood zone. What we want to talk to our boards about is, does it make sense to get flood insurance in the event that we have torrential rains like we did in December and cause some serious issues? If you're not in if your property is not located in a special flood zone, chances are the insurance is going to be relatively inexpensive. The deductibles can range anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. So it should be at least considered by the board to look into what does flood insurance cost. If the sewers and drains are overflowing because there's too much water going into them and impacting them, and they can't actually let the water flow through, so it ends up backing up, that is going to be covered under sewers and drains. If, however, the storm drains are clogged with debris, that is not going to be covered under the definition of backup of sewers and drains. That is actually an obstruction that should have been removed prior to the rain season. So if you have properties that have a lot of trees, they have a lot of shrubs, we want to make sure that their drains, when the gardeners are out there and they're mowing and blowing, that they're actually clearing the drains out. So that could, be something that can be done annually, an annual inspection by the board, an annual inspection by your gardeners. But make sure that we are keeping those drains free of debris. Slow leaks are invariably indicative of a maintenance issue. So slow leaks they're not easily detected, and most times they're not detected until something happens. The tiles start falling off the bathroom, or we've got some mold and some mildew issues under the sink. So this is where the flow by Moen can actually help detect some of those leaks and can help reduce the cost of repair. So I want to give you some examples of claims that are covered and not covered. So these are, on the left side, you see the telephone pole, and you see a ceiling fan that have frozen water. These are pictures from the Texas freeze that we had not that long ago. And so that is going to be a covered claim. That ceiling fan with the leaking water in, that's going to be a covered claim. In the middle, what we have is a flood. So depending on what actually caused that flood is going to determine whether or not that's covered. So that is more of a questionable issue. Is it flooding because the sewer and drain were impacted by debris? Or is it that the rains were so heavy that the sewers and drains couldn't handle the inflow of water, so it caused everything to back up? And so that is going to be questionable. And on the right-hand side, it looks like a sudden burst of a pipe. Sudden burst is probably going to be covered. Sometimes we have pipes that will burst because of tree penetration or some other issue, maybe a settling. It could be a questionable claim, but most times when there's a sudden break in the pipe, that is going to be covered by definition of coverage. So now the claim is paid and closed out. So what happens then? Your adjuster is going to send you a letter with the estimate of damages. He's going to send you a letter with all the coverage points, and they're going to issue a claim payment minus the deductible. That claim payment will either go out as a live check, or in some cases it can be an ACH payment, which I think is probably one of the easiest ways to get paid. The payment goes out to the homeowners association as the primary named insured. I just want to reiterate that the insurance company does not participate in the repair of the property. So that is going to be on the board, the unit owner, and or the property manager to make sure that the right people get out there. There is exception to the Farmers Direct Repair Program. So while I am a farmer's insurance agent and I love my farmer's insurance company, I implore you to not use the Farmers Direct Repair Program. We have had some issues. It's supposed to be seamless. I've not had that experience on a couple of accounts. I would rather you not use the direct repair program. I would rather you use one of your vendors or use your vendors that are approved by Collins. Again, because of COVID, everything is backed up. The only thing the direct repair program will do for you is likely pay the vendor directly. Other than that, we have zero control over their schedule. We have zero control over their timeliness. We are trying to put good vendors on the program. But I would actually ask that you not use the direct repair program at this point. Once the claim has been paid, our insurance contract has been fulfilled and the claim is closed out. So the HOA will handle all the repairs, usually via the CC&Rs and how payment is dictated. So it's very important that your unit owners also are aware of what the CC&Rs dictate will be paid and what will not be paid. If there's a shortfall in the amount paid, then that has to be readjusted and we will go back to the adjusters to get a revised settlement. Most of the times the insurance will be paid out on a replacement cost valuation. On some of the bigger claims, you're going to see it's going to be paid out on actual replacement cost or actual cost ACV. And so when that happens, there is going to be a little differential that once all of the repairs have been done, that differential will be reimbursed to the homeowners association. So just so you know, the CC&Rs will dictate coverage most times. I say most times because we read the CC&Rs, we apply the coverage according to the CC&Rs, whether it's bare walls, original construction, or improvements. But sometimes the CC&Rs are vague or contradictory. If that's the case, and we review with an underwriter, then usually what we do is we err on the side of broader coverage. Broader coverage could include betterments and improvements, which I know sometimes the board will say, well, that wasn't the intent. We didn't mean to cover those betterments and improvements. But we would rather err on the side of better coverage than not enough coverage. If that becomes an issue, then we can talk about it at renewal time or at the time of the claim if that's really an issue with the board. I do, however, want to point something out, and this is something that I learned relatively recently, is that if the insurance contract has a stipulation that the Master Homeowners Association policy is secondary and other insurance or HO6 is primary, the unit owner's policies will respond as primary and the HOA is secondary. This is a very unique situation and usually affects properties not insured in the primary market. Your primary market is like your Farmers, your State Farm, your Safecos, your Travelers. Your secondary market is going to be like your Lloyd's of London, your SEPA program, Comstar, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a unique situation. The boards sometimes are not happy about that, but we can't always change the insurance contract. If we're in a secondary market, it becomes very challenging to make any kind of changes. So we can always have those conversations and discussions at renewal. And so that is the end of my presentation. We're going to hold questions to the end. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sonia. So Sonia can talk about when that claim is reported, when that water is discharged, how her team comes in to save the day.
All right, let me go ahead and share my screen.
Hi, Sonia, I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
I
Yes.
just wanted to confirm that you are able to see the screen that I'm sharing.
Yes.
Great.
So I will say again, my name is Sonia Fuetsch. I'm with First Onsite, and I have Jose Sabina, who is my counterpart. And Collins management is very important to us. So Jose and I work together as a team to make sure that we follow up with any of your requests or calls that you make. And just to make that possible, Jose lives about 3 minutes away from your office. So
That's right.
if anything is needed, he literally can be there in 5 minutes. So we'll take it away. So I'm going to just dovetail off of what Jessie was talking about. This is what happens with water. And this presentation was made just for Collins from my marketing team. So go ahead. I'm going to go over what I'm going to talk about today. It's a long presentation. There's 40 something slides, but I'm just going to go over just so you can see kind of what we do at First Onsite. We've been doing this for a long time. We've been in business for over 25 years. We're a national account. We're very familiar with working with insurance companies. In fact, we do it all the time. And we are considered one of the best in the industry in that aspect. So I'm going to talk about building water damage and the key response considerations, types of water, our response plan of how we react, occupant health, preventing additional damage after the water flows, removing the contaminants as quickly as possible, drying the site, key important, what we do behind the scenes after we put everything into place. Once everything is destroyed, you have to determine what to save, what not to save, what's worth saving. And then water damage procedures. And then again, at the very end, we can ask questions for both Jessie, myself, and Jose. Okay, so the impacts obviously are if you have a water intrusion, you're going to have staining of anything that it touches, rusting, loss of structural building furnishings, your desk, your tables, your chairs, your carpet, and there's health risks from the contaminants that produces. And then also if there's going to be disruption, obviously, because no one can go back into the building because there has been damage and people are displaced from their home. So the key response considerations, and that's what Jessie was saying, is immediate response saves time and money, period. We all know that in the industry. The quicker you respond, the more money you're going to save, and it protects you from health and potential liabilities and illness. It also delays the scope and severity of the problem, and it's not very safe if you don't call me within the next, at least within 15 minutes to an hour, because 48 hours after is when there might be microbial growth which we don't want to have. So these are the three types of water categories. One is clean water, just like Jessie was saying, is rain flow, things from the water lines, appliances. So it's a low risk. And usually we can take care of that within 24 hours. The second is category 2, which is a broad range. It could be clean. It could be a little bit contaminated. Maybe fire suppression systems, storm drain backups, maybe cooling water. And that's a medium risk level. And then this is a category that you do not want and is highly contaminated. sewer backups, rivers, seawater, et cetera. And this is high risk, and doing the salvage is low. It's hard to get that cleared out because you have infectious viruses, bacteria, diseases, and it's not a good situation. We call it black water.
Mhm.
So our response plans is this: one, protect everyone, remove the contaminants, save what materials you can, prevent additional damage, making sure that no water is going to keep on coming in, and then dry the site. So to protect the occupant health is clearly you have to identify the water type. If it's class 1, 2, or 3, you can look at it, you can see it, you can smell if it's bad. If it smells bad, it's clearly going to be a 2 or 3 water contaminant. And most importantly, our crews come in, they have PPE, personal protective equipment, always, including boots and gloves and eye protection. And sometimes if it's a class 3, they will be a respiratory appliance. So if you're in the situation, you want to avoid category 2 or 3, you want to avoid any cuts or abrasions on your hands. You want to communicate to everyone around you the health risks. And also we find out then if there's lead, asbestos, or mold, and also look at what the big picture is, how we're going to attack it next. And this is important. Jessie touched on this. We need to know where your water shutoff and electric panels are. Sometimes we'll do a site assessment for your team. We'll just go to the properties in advance and document where the turnoff water shutoffs are and where the water sources are, so we know in advance, so we know we go to directly there if there is any kind of break or water flow. And also we dispose of that water properly. Additional damage is take steps to prevent more damage, remove small furnishings, breakables, also anything on the tables or counters, cover them with plastic, protect the legs, the desks, and where they're contacted on the floor, and then tie up, they usually tie up the drapes and furniture skirts. So this is also what happens if you don't respond quickly. This happens, when water sits for a while. If you have a problem with walking a unit, and after 2 weeks, this is usually what we're going to see. These are signs of leak in the back of the wall. So getting rid of contamination, excess water, is what we do is use these machines to get rid of the water. We pump everything out, and we use wet vacuums, and we mop the affected area. So biocides, this is we use for microbial growth, and we use that in aiding sanitizing any contaminated materials. We have to be careful with biocides because you can have eye and respiratory irritation with those. And we always make sure that we have our PPE in place before we do anything. So this is a picture of our drying process. I don't know if any of you have seen this before, but this is what we do is we remove the drywall off the walls, and we put all of our equipment in place to manage the temperature of the building and the humidity level. And we have movement so we can dry the walls and the floors with all of our fans and blowers. And sometimes we can have to put holes in the walls to make sure we get in the walls and the cabinets. And this is an example of how that works, is we have the dehumidifier in the room. The moisture is pumped out into a sink or a drain, and then we circulate the dry air in the room with our dehus. And this is something that happens all the time. So we're trying to have a climate that's secure in the affected area, and we have to have a certain temperature for things to dry. And a lot of times people will open up the window. Well, when we open up the window, that compromises everything that we're trying to accomplish. So that is absolutely a bad idea. And a lot of times it happens, and we don't know what happens until, 2 days later we go back and the situation's the same. So I highly recommend telling your tenants not to open the windows when we're doing this process. And then we go back in, and we're as the project's going, we assess all the moisture levels. So we do penetrating moisture levels and non-penetrating, which with infrared cameras. So we want to see if things are drying out, and we do that on a daily basis. Jessie was talking about how it's important for us to communicate with the insurance company, and what we provide is called a daily field report, or DFR, where our crew goes in and they take pictures of the affected site before we go in, what happened, and then during every single day we document our activity as well as our photos, and we put that together and provide it to you so that you have a booklet to provide to Jessie. So this is what you can see with infrared. What you see in the top, you don't really see anything, but with the infrared, you can see exactly what is wet, and it's everything under those garbage cans and some places as well on the ceiling. And that is with the camera, it reads through and shows you the measurement. So we know what we're working with. Basically, salvage or replace, it's kind of, it's up to you, but usually things that are of high value can be salvaged. You want to not salvage things that are absorbent, less absorbent. You can. Also, what you have to take into consideration is the cleanliness of the water. Clearly, if it's a class 3, you don't want to save anything. But most likely, if you do, you want to make sure they're sanitized and dried, obviously. And what we do is we go in and remove the molding to inspect for water damage. What can be more cost effective to replace that? We dispose of water damage MDF materials. Wood moldings can be removed, cleaned, and dried. And then we mark the location where the molding was so we can reinstall. So we also do the mitigation and the reconstruction. Our company does both. So we can go and do the remediation of the water intrusion, and then we can go back and do the reconstruction. And we have 2 teams that work hand in hand to do that. So carpet is an issue. Most situations I can say we replace it. I don't remember any time that we really saved, unless it's a tile. But most likely if it's more than 48 to 72 hours, you may want to replace it. You can put other things on that surface. If salvaging, lift the carpet so the air can circulate. Another thing is to be careful of damaging the carpet seams, and also, of course, remove all the furniture first before when it's wet, because you don't want it to stain the carpet. And then we have to dry and sanitize and professionally clean it. Always replace the padding if it's a category 2 or 3. This is very correct. You pull it out. It's not that expensive. Just replace it. It's made of natural fibers and it's absorbent. And replace the carpet padding is more cost effective than drying it out, for sure. Ceiling tiles, if they're damaged, usually get wet between 24 hours and they start to sag, and then they actually bundle water in there and they have to be replaced as well. Drywall, same. If we're prompt response, we can use the moisture meter, as I discussed before, and dry it out. If not, we should be replaced. You can see weeping holes in the walls, and again, like I said, in the tiles and the ceiling, but you want to remove that and try to dry it out or replace it. Plaster, heavily painted plaster is really, really hard to dry. And that's the plaster that's got 4 or 5 layers of paint on it. So what we do is we open the holes in the wall to inspect it, and also ventilation. Rugs, same thing as carpet. It's, what the value of it, the contamination level is, how much water there was exposed to. You usually want to remove the rugs over floors immediately. And again, remove the furniture, dry, sanitize, and professionally clean, and reinstall if you can. Wall coverings should be pulled back immediately because it can get wet very, very quickly. And then there's water damage with the wall covering. And another thing is we always ask is if you can get extra stock. So if there is just one portion that's been damaged, we can replace that wall covering in one portion rather than replacing the entire area. And also, vinyl wallpaper is notorious for retaining mold. So just be aware of that. So this is our internal response procedure as far as what we do at First Onsite. You would want to report the damage to the on-site engineer, call us immediately, take steps to eliminate as quickly as you can for secondary damage, for furnishings, avoid contact with any of the category that I told you, 2 or 3 water, and then wear your protective clothing, as we always do when we get on the site. These are the procedures. Again, take steps to stop the source wherever it's coming from. The manager on duty should notify infectious control facilities, notify us that this loss has occurred, determine if we can come out and have the necessary in-house maintenance to handle it. We are 24/7, 365, so you can call us anytime, and we can mobilize as quickly as possible. So when we get called, the project director makes contact with your property manager. We get a work authorization which executed. We do local extraction where we pull everything out, pull the water out. Our project director arrives on site as quickly as possible, walks the site, speaks to the facility directors, the building engineers, and then does a risk assessment and puts a plan in place. So our scope of work is prepared. We have our resources on site. We have a moisture map reading, as I told you. We provide the daily field reports. We have project managers on site. And then everything is moisture content tracked and daily monitored with our equipment. And then we first onsite begins taking equipment off if it starts to dry. A rebuild scope, as I told you, we can do the rebuild as well. And prepare that for the insurance company, get a certification of completion of work, and then the site restructuring begins on our side. So again, planning saves time and money. Delay makes it more difficult, it costs more money and time. The quicker you respond, it reduces the impact of the damage, health, safety risks, business operations, time, and overall cost. And I thank you so much. This is our information, which you'll have this slide deck, and we're going to open it up to questions. Any questions for either Jessie, myself, or Jose? None?
I had a bunch of questions as we went through the presentation, and now I've forgotten all of them.
Well, you recorded it, so you can go through it again.
Yeah, I kind of botched that as well. I started recording about 30 seconds late. Generally speaking, there were some terms that I was not quite familiar with. There was one warning about a post-tension slab, and that was something that you recommended that was determined or communicated to first on site. Can you talk about that? And I know what that is. Others may not, but why would that be an important thing?
That is a question for my project director. That's
Okay.
He can go in detail on that one because that's something that he can discuss. I don't know the details of that one.
Okay. Yeah. Generally, there's a concern that that whatever cabling is used in the slab gets cut, which can result in a major destruction of the foundation. But I don't think that would apply here. All right. Are there any other questions, or were these presentations so good, so complete, and comprehensive that
they're speechless?
It left.
Do you have the emergency telephone number handy, Sonia?
I do, and I will put it into the chat.
Okay.
And also in our info sheets, we have a flyer for first on site there as well.
Okay. Can I elaborate a little bit on the post tensioning?
Yes, please.
Oftentimes, if you have a slab leak, the slab needs to be opened up to fix the problem. If there's post tensioning and the contractor is not made aware of it, they could snap that like a guitar string.
Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense. So if it's an under slab water break, then this becomes an important question. I can tell you it's not something that we generally know the answer to. Perhaps some managers do. But I think that's something that we may not necessarily know the answer to be honest with you.
I'm dealing with that issue now where they jackhammered the concrete and didn't know there was post tension down there, but they didn't stop at the first one. They damaged 3 before they stopped.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of my new associations that just came in. So I was going to reach out to Dean, actually.
I should have kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, so you'll be hearing from me.
All right.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, to all the managers, especially, and why I invented, Sonia and Jessie to attend. This is probably the most complex thing that we encounter. As previously stated, if there's a multi-unit disaster flood, I do want Dean involved, because there's just so many ways for things to go sideways. In fact, Collins Management has assumed liability from people who have not kind of followed these best protocols. So it's really important that these be followed. Jessie, I had a question for you. With respect to a multi-unit flood, do you have any advice on how to navigate communication when you have multiple units with multiple policies in place and all that jazz that can become really complicated really fast? Do you have any words of wisdom in that regard?
Yeah, great question. We actually had that recently happen at one of our insured properties. There were 3 units involved, 3 different insurers on the HO6, and then the master policy. I have to say that these 3 unit owners and your property manager, they were on the ball. All HO6 policies were put on notice. State Farm, Allstate, and Farmers came out separately, did their assessment. There were 3 different water restoration companies called out. Each unit owner took care of, the damage in their units. And then the master policy didn't even have to get involved. The HO6 carriers took care of their insureds, got everything restored, and that, in my opinion, worked beautifully. If we have a situation where usually it's the unit that's not insured that's going to scream the loudest. So that is definitely one where the property manager wants to get involved and get, your water restoration company out there and get everything situated, get the insurance, the master HOA policy on notice, so that a claim can be at least we're on notice and see if we have to open a claim. So I would say that it's really important to communicate to the owners that even if the master policy includes interior unit coverage, there could be a deductible issue involved. So all our unit owners should have their own personal policies involved. It works the best when everybody's insured and the insurance companies can negotiate amongst themselves, and then your property manager doesn't even have to get involved, right? That's the best case.
Thank you. And I'm going to say some things, and then if anything that I say is absolutely dead wrong, please fact check me in real time. So, obviously big losses result in, probably higher premiums going forward, or maybe difficulty getting coverage at all. Is it, and the perception that we're getting is that we're kind of in a choppy environment right now where it may even be more difficult than usual, or premiums might be higher than usual for the next couple of years. Is that an accurate statement?
You're right on the ballpark there. You're right on point. So I have to say that while, it can seem to the board's advantage to shop their insurance year after year and try to get a better premium, we do have a property, and Grace can vouch for this one, because of the longevity that this association had with farmers. And this was right at the beginning of the pandemic when everything just went haywire. Farmers was going to non-renew an account because of the losses. They had 2 years of pretty heavy losses, water losses, and farmers wanted off of the account. So they non-renewed it. I went out to market. The premium came back at 400% of the farmer's premium. And Grace just about had a heart attack. I had a heart attack. She had a heart attack. And what we ended up being able to do is really go back to farmers and say, this account has been with farmers for 10 plus years. They've had overall many years of no claims. This is a Collins management account. So we leverage the longevity and the relationship with Collins in order for farmers to offer a renewal. They did offer a renewal. They did stay on the account. And it was probably a 25% increase, which was more palatable than a 400% increase. So I have to say that, do talk to your boards and let them know that it is to their advantage to have a relationship with their insurance company, whether it's State Farm, Farmers, Allstate, whoever's offering their insurance, rather than moving it every few years, because you can use that relationship as a lever to right now the market is going crazy. Insurance premiums are going up, insurance values are going up. So I just sent out a renewal to one of your managers where the building valuation went up 21% to keep up with current rebuild costs. And in June, the premium is also going to go up. Luckily, it didn't go up 21% along with the building coverage. But yeah, there's a lot happening in the market right now. And I think that, where we used to budget for a 3 to 4% increase, that's no longer the case. We need to budget for higher increases. And it's really challenging when we have carriers leaving the market. AIG, super big carrier, just left California, non-renewing all homeowners policies. So when these big carriers are exiting California, it tightens the market. The premiums are going to go up because insurance companies really don't want additional market share, but if they're going to take it on, they want premium for it.
And so thank you. And then, so back in my management days, I always recommended to my boards that they have as high deductibles as possible, that if possible, they amend their CCNRs to require that homeowners are required to have an HO6 policy. So there's absolutely no debate. And that you're judicious in opening claims. Yes, you always notify Jessie, and maybe she opens the claim, or whoever your insurance professional is, maybe they open a claim, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the association should, or the association's insurer should pay that claim. If it's a $23,000 loss and you have a $20,000 deductible, why have the association add that to your loss history of a $3,000 loss when you could just pay the extra $3,000 on top of the deductible and maybe not have your premiums go up by a lot. Another consideration is to make sure that if the association's insurance is made primary, but it's a homeowner component that failed, but we're still required to insure that loss, whether a claim is opened or not. Make sure you do those reimbursement assessments to bill back the homeowner, and then they can take that reimbursement assessment letter and take it to their insurer, and then it goes from the property damage side to the liability side of their HO6 policy, which tends to make it easier to pay, and it also has less of an impact on their premiums as a homeowner. Jessie, was any of that all wrong? I mean, this is going back a lot of years.
Yeah, no. So Paul, if you're ever looking for a new job, I'd be happy to hire you. And Dean is another insurance expert. So yes, you are on point. I highly recommend a higher deductible. Not only will you save on premium, but yes, you do protect your loss ratio. So loss ratios are frequency and severity. So obviously, if we have half of Parkwoods burned down, we want that claim on farmer's policy, and we want to make sure that we rebuild. But when we have, sewer backup or, water claims are pretty frequent reported claims. But the higher your deductible, and yes, you then pass on the insurance claim to your homeowner. The problem is a lot of homeowners don't either they don't have coverage, or they don't have the right coverage. And so this is really where your insurance partner can come in. I know that there's a lot of brokers out there that they specifically only work with HOA. They don't do any personal lines. They don't do any homeowners insurance. But that is really where I can partner with you as just an information resource for your homeowners to really educate them on what do they really need to place so that the coverage dovetails and doesn't overlap, but that we also don't have a gap in coverage. So your HO6 policies can be very inexpensive, and they can be a headache saver when there are claims. I'm happy to give you more information. I can actually send you an information piece this afternoon, Paul, for you to distribute to your team. And if you want me to condense it so that you can include it in a newsletter, we can do that as well. So it really is about educating your homeowners and your board of doing what's in the best interest of the HOA's insurance policy. Because if we have a lot of claims, like Paul said, we are in dangerous territory, especially right now that the market is hard. I don't even think Travelers is writing anymore. So there's a lot of carriers that are not writing anymore. There's a lot of these program accounts that offer wonderful, wonderful entry rates. But once those claims come in, those carriers leave the program. And now, so if you have an insurance policy in place with the farmers, with the State Farm, with a company that is here to stay, lever your relationship with them, because when things go sideways on you, if you've been with an insurance company for a long time and you have that relationship behind you, like I said, we levered, the HOA's relationship with farmers and the Collins relationship with farmers. So that really is to the advantage of your properties. And I would say that's a good sales point to bring on new properties to Collins Management, is the fact that you have these relationships in place with your vendors.
Yeah, and I can stipulate to how our relationship with farmers has paid dividends for a few decades now. Hey, Sonia, I got a question for you. And then I think we could probably wrap up unless somebody has a burning question. Let's say we have like 5 or 6 active situations going on, and First Onsite has been deployed. Is there, and also given the fact that Dean is kind of like the involved in most of these claims, is there like a single point of contact that we have with First Onsite? Or do we deal individually with the various project managers on the various floods, or how does that work?
So the contact would be myself and Jose, and then we would get a team together. And at that time, we get the team together with Dean and tell Dean who the team is. So we have project directors, project managers, technicians. So we usually get like a whole group of a team, introduce that team to Dean, and then we all work together.
Okay.
So it would be the phone call go directly to myself or Jose, so we can coordinate. We like to make sure that we have our eyes on it and we know exactly what we're dealing with. And we can do multiple losses because, again, we are a national account. So if we need to pull from different offices, we can do that without hesitation.
If there's like a major, or I should say when there's a major disaster here in the Bay Area, California, and we just need to access like a reservoir of people to deal with any number of issues, like let's say like a regional earthquake or something like that, where we just need people. Is this something that First Onsite will be able to pull from other parts of the country to bring in resources?
Absolutely. Again, we are from California to New York City and up and down the country in Canada, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico. So and I've done this before, we went out of those fires, back in 2017, remember we had the fires up in Santa Rosa? So we actually pulled people from South Carolina, Texas. We had vans coming across the country. We circled our wagons around our clients. So we were prepared. We knew the fire was coming, but we got there a couple of days in advance. And that's what we do, because you are my key account, Collins Management is. And so I have the authority to call my executive team and say, hey, I need someone from Arizona, I need someone from Los Angeles, I need your team from Washington. Can you guys all come down to Northern California and assist me with these issues, with whatever the event is?
All right.
I've done it before.
Awesome. That's good. Yep. It makes me feel better, makes me sleep better at night. I didn't worry about such things. All right, Jessie, Sonia, Jonah, thank you so much for your time this morning. It was an excellent job, very informative.
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry, Matali here.
Hi, Matali.
Hi. A quick question, Sonia. If it was like a unit damage, is part of your process a post mold inspection, or do you recommend that, or would you say don't even mention that, because homeowners do ask for that? And then for Jessie, would just the inspection be covered under insurance?
Sonia, you want to go first?
Yeah. So what we usually do is we never speak that word ever. And our team knows never to bring up that word in front of a tenant. That's a conversation we'd have with the team and probably with Dean. And what we would do, we would do some kind of mold testing with authorization from Dean to make sure that we can go in and do that. And there's no discussion at all with the tenant itself. But yes, we can conduct that.
Okay.
On the insurance side, anytime there is a water discharge and water restoration services are called out, Farmers is on the claim. Once the adjuster gets out there and determines that if there's no coverage, at that point, coverage stops. Farmers will pay, up to whatever has been accrued at that time, minus the deductible. So keep in mind the deductible issue. And if the mold needs to be tested, that's part of the restoration services, and that would be part of the bill and be paid.
All right.
Different if there's mold, though. If there is mold, there's limited mold coverage. But if it's just the part of the restoration services, that's part of the payment.
You got to be careful about the words that you use with an insurance claim. I've seen claims that would normally get rejected get accepted just by the wording.
Yes.
So.
And I help you with that. So, I can help you craft because really what you're doing is you're giving farmers the story, right? This is the story of what happened. So when someone calls in and says, well, we think there's mold and mildew, and I say, stop talking.
Stop talking.
I'm like, you say there's water damage. There's water damage.
And
we leave it at that.
And it was sudden wind-driven rain and a sudden burst of water, verbiage like that. You got to make it dramatic.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Well,
I just want to say I put our information in the chat, 800 number, and then Jose and my cell phone number. And we can also send you a flyer if you want that later.
All right. Again, thank you so much. I'm going to let all these folks get to their lunch, and I appreciate it. So long, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.